Welcome to this special travel edition of CFC Scene. I'm Caitlin Caserta. As the holiday season is approaching, travelers are going to be looking for fun activities to do while family and friends are in town. The Charleston Carriage Tour is one of the best ways to explore the city and be entertained with historical facts, lore, and humor. I decided to take a look for myself.
On Market Street, there are 5 different carriage companies that take you on a tour of the city. I was lucky enough to book mine online and take one with the Old South Carriage Company located at 14 Anson Street. My tour guide was Darren Hannibal, and she filled me in on some of the interesting facts about the horses.
We go out every 20 minutes. It's an hour-long tour, and we have about 25 horses total, and they get rotated out quite a bit so they don't have to work too hard. And we have a barn here that has 10 stalls, so those are where the 10 working horses stay. And we have another barn further up on the peninsula where they go to get shoes on and off in between pastures, so that's kind of the go-between. And then we have 46 acres on Johns Island, which is fenced off for all the horses. So usually for about every month to 2 months that they work, they get about 3 weeks off at pasture. So in total, they get probably 4 months off out of the year, which is pretty good. A lot of the horses were once Amish logging farm horses, so this is actually a lot easier for them compared to what they were doing with the Amish. And normally we get them around the age of 8 or 9 from the Amish, so this is kind of a semi-retirement for them is what we call it. So.
The horse Amos stopped at the city gate to get assigned our zone for the trip. There are 3 different zones you can get depending on the color of the ball, and we got zone 1. We started the trip by passing St. Philip's Episcopal Church, and this is one of the oldest continuous Episcopalian congregations south of Virginia dating back to 1680. After an earthquake in 1886, earthquake rods or earthquake bolts were invented to put on the house to support them in case of an earthquake. The washers are on the outside of the buildings, and they can be seen on many of the historic buildings in Charleston. The Smith Killian is a brick building, and the brick used to be known as a poor man's building material. Everyone in England was building with stone, so they stuccoed over the brick and made it look like stone. This was a problem because there was no stone indigenous to Charleston. Fire insurance markers were put on the outside of establishments, and one of the 13 companies would come and put out the fire. Palmer Street is the longest cobblestone street in Charleston, and the rocks were originally used as English River rocks to weigh down the boats crossing the Atlantic. The British figured the stones were being used as roadways, and they put a tax on them. At the end of Broad Street is the old Exchange and Provost Dungeon, and this was the last building built in Charleston using British funds in 1771. It is one of the only locations in town where slaves were publicly sold. They were auctioned off the boat in front of the building, and this became illegal in the 1850s. After that, everything had to be done privately. We continued trotting down East Bay Street and past the Cooper River, where 3.5 miles across was Fort Sumter, where the first shots of the Civil War were fired. We saw houses along the Battery belonging to families such as the Portia Simmons House, the Drayton Family House, which owns Magnolia Plantation, and the Ravenel Mansion, which has missing columns from the earthquake in 1886. The Roper Mansion is right next door, and it has lion's heads as earthquake bolts. The next house was owned by Martha Carrington Williams in 1892 and was converted into a bed and breakfast, the 2 Meeting Street Inn. Back on Martha's wedding day, her father left her a note with $75,000 saying, "On the day of your dreams, build the home of your dreams." This house has Queen Anne Victorian architectural styling with rounded arches. It has the reputation of being the most romantic inn on the peninsula. Her father, George Welton Williams, lived up the street from her, and this house is now a museum, and it is 24,000 square feet, making it the largest privately owned residence on the peninsula.
If any history buffs are dying to learn more information about Charleston, I would highly recommend the tour with the Old South Carriage Company. I can't wait to show some of my friends around town when they come, and I'll be able to let them know about so many of the things that I learned. To book a trip on the tour, visit www.oldsouthcarriagetours.com. They're open 364 days a year, only closed Christmas, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. If you have any other questions, please call 843-723-9712. For this special edition of CFC Scene, I'm Caitlin Caserta.